All right, I am going to keep the poll open, but just move it over a little bit in case some people are still answering. It looks like some people are still typing, so I want to make sure I get all your feedback. All right. If you'd also like to send me what you use for those placement tests, that would be helpful too. So if you all purchase something or if you make something in-house, that would be good information as well. So I'll keep the poll open for a few more minutes as we start the PowerPoint. So I'm going to jump right into the month-by-month checklist. I know that this is the busiest time of the year for you all, so I don't want to take up too much of your time today. We should have a shorter presentation than normal, but I do want to highlight a couple of things on the checklist. As you're doing 3 to 8 testing, we're also gearing up for high school testing that starts next week and even for summer high school testing. So I just want to make sure that you all are keeping those things in mind as you go through the checklist about accommodations, about preparing those high school test coordinators and their personnel, along with the people that will be doing this for the summer window as well. You can begin ordering your additional materials for grades 3 to 8 today. So yesterday, all of your materials arrived. I know some of you received an email indicating that you might have the rest of your shipment arrive on Wednesday, but everything ended up arriving yesterday, so you should have everything you need. So if you need to order additional materials, you can start doing that, which also means if you have students that need a Spanish test for grades 3 and 4, paper, the Spanish audio CDs, and then just the regular audio CDs, Kurzweil or the MP3. You can begin ordering that. Remember, you get 1 per district, and that's up to you to determine how you want to distribute to the people that need that, but you get 1 per district. The 24th is the deadline to add students and update student information in PA Next for ACT makeups. So I know we just finished ACT initial testing date, but we're also gearing up for the makeup testing date as well. You should be receiving those materials for makeup testing this week. You also want to remember to do those sessions with the non-test information on them. That needs to be done by the 23rd. And then the 24th is the makeup ACT testing day, and that also starts the makeup ACT accommodations window, and that will end on the 30th. We also have some schools who were selected for ICILS and TIMS. So if you are those schools, you know what I'm talking about. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then that means that you were not selected, so you don't need to worry about it, but you should have received all that information already. And for May, a couple of things to highlight would be begin thinking about, if you haven't already, who's going to go to the Teacher Leader Summit at the end of May. There will be sessions every day, all day on LEAP 360 and some other assessment sessions that I'll share with you in a little bit, so you might want to start determining who needs to attend. Also in May is when ELPT and LEAP Connected Law 1 scores will be released with the rosters, student reports, and CSV files. May 11th is the last day for CLEP scores to be included in SPS for the grad cohort members. And next Monday, the 23rd, starts our high school assessments, which end on May 18th. Remember to report any testing irregularities to assessment at la.gov for grades 3 to 8 or for high school. All right, let me pause for just a second because we have a couple questions. We have a question about district accommodated materials. So those would have already been sent to you yesterday. You would have received those in your initial shipments. So if you had kids with large print, if you have kids that needed an accommodated consumable test booklet, you would have received those materials yesterday. So if you still need more, then feel free to order those through additional materials. And I would do those as soon as possible to make sure you get them before the paper-based window opens. Another question about the Read Aloud CDs. So you have to order the CD through additional materials. It does not automatically come to you. So you'll either request the Kurzweil version CD or the audio version of the CD, or both, depending on if you have schools that use both. So if you have Kurzweil in your schools, and that's what kids use all the time, definitely get the Kurzweil CD. The majority of our districts use Kurzweil, which is why we have that CD available. If you don't have Kurzweil, then you would order just the regular recorded voice CD, and that will come to you when you order it through additional materials. But again, you'll only get one of those CDs. It is completely up to you all how you securely distribute that to the people that need it. Okay. Question about if a kid has small group or extended time, do they need an accommodated version? No. Students who have read aloud or transferred answers need an accommodated version. The audio CD will be shipped to you, so you will order that through additional materials and you will get it in the mail. All right, let's jump into accountability. ESSA law requires that all students take an ELA and math test at least one time in high school. In Louisiana, policy requires that all students must have taken English 2 and Algebra 1 or the Law 1 ELA in math, even if they are never enrolled in the courses. We posted a roster of students who have not taken an ELA and or math high school assessment by their third year of high school in the district FTP. The file name is listed here. Also on the FTP is the third year assessment cohort FAQ that explains that roster that was posted. Students have been preloaded in eDirect and must either be tested or assigned an appropriate accountability code. Students not tested and not coded will be assigned a 0 for each subject in the assessment and progress indices used to calculate SPS. A student who takes the English 3 or geometry test in the spring will not need to participate in English 2 or algebra if they are not enrolled in English 2 or algebra. These are the following codes that may be used to excuse a student from testing as a part of the third year cohort. Keep in mind that code 99 cannot be used to excuse third year cohort students. All right, so these next few slides are just some reminders about tech readiness, but also wanted to put them in here again since we're gearing up for high school testing next week and for summer. Keep in mind there are some things that you all, along with your technology team, can do to prepare. And I know all of you all have been doing this all year and using Lead 360 and Eagle and all of those things, even the practice tests have really prepared you. But just as a reminder, you're going to launch Insight, which is that icon on your desktop, and there is a check mark box on the screen that you can use to do a quick technology readiness check. You also want to make sure that staff check at least one device per TSM to make sure that they are working and set it up correctly before testing begins. You can also use the text-to-speech online tools training. If it works, then everything else should work correctly. So you're testing the text-to-speech OTT. And these are those directions for the system readiness check. Again, you're going into Insight, clicking that check mark, and then you're typing in the code 7745. You should then see a screen with all green check marks. If you don't, your TA needs to alert the STC or their tech coordinator. A quick reminder about Windows 10 devices. If students will be testing on a device with Windows 10, make sure that your tech team at the school level or district level have turned off the access to Cortana, which is the search feature, or the internet search within Cortana being disabled. So they can do this manually using group policy or using the registry editor, but you want to make sure that that is turned off if you have any of those Windows 10 devices. Another reminder about technical assistance, and I really want to stress this more than normal, and I know y'all have heard me say this a million times, but it is so important that this protocol is used. I review our customer service logs every day from DRC, and the amount of questions that come to them that are then referred back to the school is pretty high. And so we want to make sure that teachers are not calling DRC. You don't have a TA calling. They should be going through the proper channels, and the last resort is to call DRC or us if there's an issue. So a lot of times those questions are going to be sent to the local district or to the school because it's an issue that needs to be addressed there. So again, the student alerts the TA or the teacher that something's wrong. That teacher or TA should try to solve the problem. If they can't, they should talk to the school test coordinator. Then the school test coordinator should do whatever they need to do to figure it out. If they can't figure it out, then they need to call you all or the tech coordinator at the district level. And then if you all need help, feel free to call us. They are more than welcome to call DRC. I just wanted you all to know that the amount of TAs and teachers that are calling should probably be a lot less, as there are things that need to be resolved at that school site. So again, the phone numbers are on here. This is also printable, so if you click the hyperlink, LEAP 2025, it will pop up to a one-pager of this exact slide that you see. This should be given to all your school test coordinators. Everyone should know what the protocol is, unless you've altered it for your district, which is fine as well. You might have other procedures in between some of these people that they need to go to. And I just wanted to give you all a little heads up on that. Also linked is the online scheduling guidance. So as you prepare for a high school test, or if you're still finalizing some things with your 3 to 8 schools, this guidance is linked here. Should definitely be used for summer testing as well. But again, we've revised this guidance document to show best practices for reducing testing time, and the charts indicate, based on the number of devices you have, how many sessions you would need to give a day and how many days it would take. And it also lists the guidelines for online administration, which are that you can't have more than 3 sessions a day. Extended response sessions should not be given on the same day, and then sessions within a content area must be given in order. The technology FAQ document is linked here, along with the technology user guide. Every tech director and their team should already have this, and they should be very fluent in this, but I wanted you all to just have this again as a reminder. You may even have some tech coordinators at the school level that probably have access to this as well, which they should. If you all have school technology facilitators, this would be 2 great documents for them to have. In addition to this technical troubleshooting tips document. This one is not as technical as the user guide is, so TA, school test coordinator, should definitely have this document in front of them. Again, this is to help them solve problems in the moment so that they don't need to make further calls to you or to us. They are able to handle it at the site. So it's just easy things that they can do to quickly check before they proceed to the next person to reach out to. And as a reminder, you will have your training account, which is 777, the sample school and eDirect. And this is for training purposes only. it's under the Practice Test 2018 administration, and you have those 10 sample kids in there that you can use to train with, especially if you're preparing for summer testing and those people are not as familiar with it. You might have a totally new group of staff that handle summer testing, so this might be a good opportunity for you to use this then. But I just wanted to remind you all of your training account. Also, testing homebound students. This information is not new, just wanted to add this in here again. There are 4 options to test homebound students, and those are listed here. If you need help, let us know. But all security should be maintained as far as bringing it to a student's home and back. That TA would need to follow whatever procedures you all have in place and that the school has in place. And they should be administered with the same rules as everything else. It just happens to be they're at a different location. All right, the next slide shows you information about the student status dashboard. I know a lot of you all love this. This allows you to display the student testing status by school and administration, and you can filter it by the testing status, the grade, the content area. It's really helpful for you all to get a view on your district as testing is taking place. We also have the testing statistic reports. There are a number of these, and they can help you assess the status of schools during testing. They're under the Online Testing Statistics tab. And these reports are available. Some of them are the daily cumulative student status reports, the daily student status report, excessive login reports. So definitely feel free to play around with these, but they are there to help you as you monitor. The online tools training, as you all know and use all the time, is still available and should be used by students before they take the test. Also, it can be accessed if you click on Insight. So you can either do it by the link here or by going into Insight. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second to answer some questions. We have a question about ACT makeups. If a kid was absent on the initial testing day, can they take it on the makeup day? Yes, absolutely. We have a question about high school students not having an ELA or math. Yes, they must test. They must have an ELA and math score on record. So if they do not have one, they need to test. We have a question about the security checklists being posted in eDirect. They were posted yesterday for grades 3 to 8. We have a question about the Englishes as far as what's required for graduation. Students that entered high school this year, they have the English 2 and English 3 requirement for graduation. I'm sorry, students that entered before this year have English 2 and English 3. Students that entered this school year have the English 1 and English 2 requirements for graduation. So anyone that started high school this year does English 1 instead of English 3. We have a question about makeup tests for grades 3 to 8, or for high school, I guess, online. So if a student is absent, let's say they're supposed to take session 1 on Monday, session 2 on Tuesday, session 3 on Wednesday. Yes, you can test session 1 and session 2 that next day. So you should keep them with the same schedule as their peers and then have them take whatever session they missed after that. So in this instance, they show up to school Tuesday, take session 2. Yes, it is okay if they take session 1 after session 2 because it is a makeup. All right, we have a question about high school algebra being given in the 8th grade. And how does that work? What is the policy? So there are 2 options for students who take Algebra 1 and are enrolled in the 8th grade. The first option is the student can just take the high school algebra, which will count in the current year at the middle school. The second option is the student can take the 8th grade LEAP 2025 and the high school Algebra 1. For this option, the Algebra 1 LEAP 2025 score will count in the SPS and will be banked to the high school in which the student enrolls next school year. This option cannot be applied to any other grade level or subject. So this is only Algebra 1. This is not for any other test. But since they are enrolled in Algebra 1, they're definitely going to take the Algebra 1 test. The option is, do they just take it or do they take both 8th grade and Algebra 1? And that is up to you all. All right, let me go ahead and jump in to test security. Again, all of these things are reminders. Y'all have done the majority of this work all year, and so now it's just showtime. So there's not too much new information. So with investigations, remember that you as the DTC are responsible for initiating an investigation of any severe irregularity, which could result in a kid's test being voided. The investigation report template that's linked here should be used, and this is the minimum that you all need to send to us for your investigation. Almost all of you send so much more, which is great, but again, this is just the minimum. These investigations are due to assessment at la.gov 30 days after notification to you all. If a student cheats, their test should be voided. When this happens, the TA is going to give the STC a written account of what happened with any additional documentation. Then the school test coordinator is going to hold a committee meeting that has at least the principal, STC, and the TA to determine whether the test should be voided. Once they make that decision, the STC is going to send a form to you. That form is called the Void Notification Form. Once you get that, you are going to fill out the Void Verification Form to us. So you are verifying that this void should happen. You are sending it to assessment at la.gov. As you are thinking about high school testing and summer testing, keep in mind we have negotiated an agreement with Cavion, the nation's leading test security experts, to provide monitoring, investigation, and training services. If you want information about that, you can click here, and you can also reach out to Cavion directly, and we've linked that as well. For K-3 assessments, the 2018-2019 guidance on the kindergarten entry assessment and the K-3 literacy screener is linked here. So each fall, public schools must administer a kindergarten readiness screener and a K-3 literacy screener within the first 30 days of school. The KEA, which is the kindergarten entry assessment, must be given to all first-time kindergarten students, and there are two options for that assessment, DRDP and TS Gold, and those were two that were provided this year. We are no longer administering DSC, so there used to be 3, now there's 2. For the K-3 literacy screener, that's administered to all kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade students, and there are 3 options, Dibbles Next, Steep, and Step. You will submit the data for the KEA and the literacy screener with the SIS October 1 collection. So this is another change from last year. The survey that's linked at the bottom of this slide is for you all to indicate which choice you are making for the KEA and the K-3 literacy screener. So again, there are some changes this year. The guidance is linked here. Here are the biggest changes. KEA is now just 2 assessments, DRDP and TS Gold. We're no longer doing DSC. The next big change is that the K-3 literacy screener has 3 options, Dibbles, Next, Steep, and Step. And then the next update is that you all are submitting the data with your SIS October 1 collection. So last year you had to fill out the Excel files and send them to all your schools and collect them all and send them to us. That is not the case. So I just wanted you to know those are the 3 big things. And the guidance is linked here along with the survey for you all to complete by April 27th. This is in the guidance document, but again, this just outlines which assessments are available, the skills they measure, the resources provided, the testing window, and the reporting information. So on the K-3 literacy screener, you'll notice one of the resources is called Score Guidelines. These are similar to the ones last year, but it's just a separate document since we can't include it in the Excel document. This lets you know how to score them. There's also an FAQ for the kindergarten entry assessment. All right, again, just a reminder about assessment results. This is the timeline for the release of the 2017-18 school and school system level assessment results. You all as a school system should be developing the plan for communicating these results to principals, teachers, and families. Just a reminder, the LEAP 2025 results for high school, with the exception of U.S. history, will be posted at the end of the testing window. The LEAP 2025 high school results will not post for districts in the usual 4-day window that EOC has posted. So as psychometric plans have become more refined throughout the year, we are now targeting LEAP 2025 high school, English 1, English 2, Algebra and Geometry to become available beginning the last week of the window and ending on May 24th. So I'm going to repeat that again. Just as a reminder, the high school LEAP 2025 results, except for U.S. history, are coming at the end of the test window. So if you have school closing close to those times, you might want to plan to make sure your students are testing earlier in the window to make sure that results are returned as early as possible. But again, those will be beginning to release the last week in the window. I also have the reminder about testing home study students in here. Again, that FAQ is linked for you to refer to. If you have any questions, let me know. There's also information in the manuals about this as well. And also testing students from non-public schools. So that FAQ is there, and the guidance is on this slide as well. I have a couple of reminders for LEAP 2025. So one thing that I mentioned earlier was about the accommodated test booklets. So you received accommodated test booklets in your shipment. These students that need them are kids who have read aloud and kids who have transferred answers. These students must receive one of those accommodated test booklets. If you have a student that has a human reader and the TA is using a book to read from, they need to make sure that they're using the accommodated version. So remember, the kid is taking an accommodated version consumable test booklet if they have read aloud or if they have transferred answers, which means that TA needs to be reading from that same booklet. And that is the booklet they will place the read aloud label on. Also, as a reminder, the department's begun recruiting for LEAP 2025 Assessment Development Educator Review Committees, and these committees meet from May through September, and the people on these committees are educators that will review potential LEAP 2025 assessment items or provide recommendations for scoring extended response and constructed response tasks. The interest survey links, specific information about the different committees and contact information is in this Assessment Development Educator Review Committee link. It is also in the Assessment Guidance Library. There is also a webinar recording on this in the Assessment Guidance Library as well. The interest surveys close April 20th and May 4th, and they are listed on this slide. So if you have teachers that you think would be awesome for this, we definitely want your input. All right, let's look at our key dates for grades 3 to 8. A lot of things have already taken off. Keep in mind that the computer-based testing window ends May 4th. The last day to order additional materials prior to the paper-based window is April 24th. So you can still order them after April 24th, but in order to get them before the window, you need to make sure that you order them by April 24th. The deadline to invalidate any tests and communicate any testing irregularities to assessment at la.gov is May 9th. And these are the paper-based testing key dates. The window starts April 30th and ends the 4th. Makeup testing for paper-based is May 7th through 8th. And then the materials pickup days are listed here as well. Remember that makeup testing for online testing is during the window. So you have 4 weeks to do it all. Test, and if there are any makeups that need to take place, that must happen during the window. The only group of kids that have a separate makeup test window are the students in grades 3 and 4 that take paper. They have the following Monday and Tuesday for makeups if the school needs it. All right, some reminders about spring high school administration that starts Monday. You'll be able to order additional materials through May 17th. So you've already been able to do that. This is for your high school kids. The window starts Monday. It ends May 18th. May 21st is when invalidations must be completed and that void notification and verification forms are due. You'll also send back any accommodated materials. This would be your students with Braille books or your sign language interpreters to return their materials, and that's by May 23rd. And then all rescore requests are due to DRC by June 15th. Please remember or remind your school test coordinators that when they are scheduling their sessions for high school, it is so important that they enter the correct begin and end dates. So you should not see all of your schools have the entire window as testing that child. It is one session. They get 1 day to take it. If you want to leave a couple days room in case they have a makeup, that's fine, but your test sessions should not be from April 23rd to May 18th. They are not testing every day the same session. So please make sure that they remember to put accurate dates in the system. Also, as a reminder, that LEAP 2025 tests are timed and the EOC tests are not. The only students who are eligible to take the 4-level U.S. History EOC are graduating students and retesters who are not in the course. If you need a reference for your school test coordinators or for your team on the high school assessments, the FAQ is linked here. For unlocking and invalidating test tickets, only the DTC should have permission to unlock and invalidate the test tickets. Anytime this happens, you'll need to submit a testing irregularity form. The directions on how to do this is in the manual. Also, students with accommodations in SIR and CIS will be uploaded by DRC. Kids who are not pre-identified must be added manually. Test coordinators will need to manually enter read-aloud accommodations for students in CIS. Read-aloud accommodations for students in SIR will be populated. Also, any student with a PNP or an English learner accommodation plan, those will need to be manually entered as well by the STC. School test coordinators should be reminded to assign or verify accommodations before they put students in a test session. This will ensure that students will receive the correct accommodations with the correct forms. So they need to adjust any accommodation before they drop them in a test session. Please make sure your school test coordinators are reviewing those accommodations, verifying them, making sure everything is good to go. Also this year, an addition that we've made is that the student accommodations will display on the test roster for those online accommodations. So text-to-speech and Spanish are the 2 online accommodations that would be visible for a student. So if they got the Spanish test, it would be in Spanish. If they had text-to-speech, it would be reading it aloud, and the follow-along would be highlighting across the screen. That way the TA can instantly know which kids they should be able to glance at and see have the right things. So those are on the rosters this year. For English 3, the reading passages in sessions 2 and 3 and the questions cannot be read aloud or signed. This is a violation of test security, which will result in voiding of the test. So as long as the student has text-to-speech selected in the system, there is no problem. It will only read what it needs to read to the child. It won't read anything when it comes to those passages and questions. It'll just be blank. So if they raise their hand and say it's not working, it's probably because those are not supposed to be read aloud. If you have a student that has a human reader, this is also in the manual, but I would remind them they cannot read session 2 and 3 passages and questions. For English 1 and English 2, the whole thing can be read aloud. And it will be read aloud when the text-to-speech plays. As a reminder, seniors that get an automatic rescore of a 4-level EOC will receive their scores 8 days after taking the test. So they have 4 days to get the scores. If it's a rescore, it's another 4 days, which gives you the 8 days. So just keeping that in mind, you definitely want to make sure your seniors are testing first. I know you all already know this and you've done it for forever, but I just wanted to remind you, super important to make sure your seniors test first. Students should be provided with scratch paper. It can be blank, line, graph, colored, it doesn't matter. The scratch paper that's used has to be collected at the end of each session and given to the STC to be destroyed. The protocol below should be used for students that transfer. So again, this is in the manual. I know you all are used to this, but just wanted to give you a reminder about transferring students. So if you have a new student that moves into the district and it's just one kid, then you should email DRC or you can call. But if you have more than one student, you are going to complete the student transfer form in eDirect and email it to DRC, and they'll have those transferred for you as soon as possible. You all and your school test coordinators need to wait till the very end of the testing window to do accountability coding in eDirect. At the end of the window, accountability code students should be placed in a test section for each subject and have that code applied. Please make sure that your STCs and you have signed off on the documentation for the code that is needed. So you will need that for an audit, so you might as well have it ready to go anyway. And you also want to make sure that you're verifying the codes that your schools are doing for these students. In order to pull up a list of the applied accountability codes, you're going to go to Manage Test Session, pick the district and school, and export the student details. The applied accountability codes will be in the column labeled Testing Codes. And the technical assistance protocol is the same as grades 3 to 8, just another reminder in here about following that. And you can click the link to get the one-pager of this slide. Also, as we prepare for summer testing, I know that seems so far away, but it is not. We want to make sure that you and your district technology coordinators are preparing for summer now. So a plan for support should be in place. You should be meeting with your tech coordinators to make sure the sites you're using for summer are ready, the devices are ready, you have a game plan in place for any issues that may come up, making sure devices are prepared, etc. The summer testing window for high school students is June 18th through 22nd, and this is just a list of some things that the technology coordinator should be aware of. So you want to make sure that you and your tech team are on the same page and are working closely together. For ACT and WorkKeys, just have some documents here that are resources for you all, including the schedule of events, the student data upload template, how to order additional materials, and the user guides for different tasks. So feel free to call ACT if you have any questions. There's also a separate extension for accommodations questions if you have those. There's also a WorkKeys help desk number as well. The most important dates is that tomorrow, the 18th, is the deadline to order ACT accommodations materials for makeup testing by calling ACT, and the number's listed there with the extension. The 24th, next Tuesday, is when you will administer makeup ACT testing. The 24th through the 30th is the accommodated makeup window. The 26th is the FedEx pre-scheduled pickup for the standard time materials. May 2nd is the FedEx pre-scheduled pickup for ACT accommodated makeup materials. All right. For ELPT and Lead Connect, we have a few reminders. ELPT results will be posted in the AIR online reporting system that is accessed in the portal. The online reporting system user guide will also be posted in the portal under resources before the results are released. The user guide will walk users through the options for pulling reports and sorting data, and you will log into ORS with the same username and password that was used for ELPT testing. The ORS has two major features: score reports, which allows for a comparison of proficiency by grade level at the teacher, school district, and state levels, and retrieve student results, which allows for a download of data and individual student reports. Score reports display aggregated scores for district schools, teachers, and rosters, as well as individual student performance data for ELPT. So you can use these reports to determine strategies that can help with improving teaching and learning. You can view performance trends to determine which overall performance is improving. Data can be compared with the overall state and district average for the test you're analyzing as well. Reports can be navigated by making selections in the exploration menu for the data that you want to view. The WHO allows for reports to be categorized by school, teachers, rosters, or students, and the what drop-down allows for proficiency to be compared by subject or by domain. Retrieve student results allows you to download student data for administration by district, school, teacher, or roster, and it can be downloaded either as an Excel or as a zip file with PDFs for the individual student reports. Keep in mind all of this information is going to be located in the ORS user guide. For Elite Connect and Law 1, those results will be available in eDirect in May, and those reports can be accessed through report delivery under all applications. For student reports, eDirect users can display testing scores for students and save the results in a PDF. Can also display reports by administration, district, school, and report name. We've also released parent guides for Leap Connect and ELPT. So the guides provide families with information on the student achievement level by content or domain, a comparison of the student's progress to others, and information for parents to use to help with discussions with their child's teacher. These reports should be sent home along with the student report. So the parent guide and the student report should be sent home together, and these documents are in the Family Support Toolbox. A couple things about LEAP 360 that I wanted to mention are the interim reports for all forms were posted in eDirect on April 9th, which includes the district item response files, school test session summary reports, and the test session summary reports. And the dates of future scheduled report postings are located here. So the next one is going to be next Monday, the 23rd. As a reminder, as we prepare for 2018-19, the MOU that was signed for 2017-18 is going to have the same conditions for our 2018-2019 one. So LEAP 360 will be available to districts at no cost again. Year 2 is a really great way for you all to reevaluate your existing assessment practices, reduce testing, and transition to a more comprehensive assessment system. So as you're planning for next year, keep in mind that you, along with the superintendent, will need to submit the 18-19 MOU amendment form, and it's due on July 7th. Once this is submitted, you will be included in the administration for next school year, and it will begin displaying in eDirect for you. School systems should anticipate a cost for the 2019-2020 school year. And just as a recap, if you missed the March supervisor collaborations, during the first year of LEAP 360 implementation, we collected feedback in a ton of ways, including focus groups that met throughout the year, site visits, feedback from the field, feedback from our network teams, and we categorized the feedback into those 5 focus areas: data management, educator scoring, reporting, content, and EAGLE. And if you want to refer to the improvements from the March supervisor collaboration, you can click the link there and access that PowerPoint If you have any questions about any of them, feel free to email or call me to talk through. All right, we have a few updates for you all. These next two slides I included so that you all are aware of some things that are key action items for data coordinators. And I know that nothing can happen in assessment world without the data coordinator, so we want to make sure that you're looped in on some things coming up for them. So there are some data coordinator action items that include submitting data to close out the school year, and also to provide feedback to updates for next school year. End of year data is important to students, it's important to funding, you all know it's important to accountability, and it's also important for career tech work. So it is super, super critical that teams work together with data managers to make sure that submissions are accurate. The details of this will be, if you click here, there's a link to the presentation for the data coordinators monthly call that happened, and they were able to submit feedback for next year's improvements to data systems as well. Those improvements were also held in a session at the March supervisor collaboration. Data coordinators got to review the changes and submit feedback. And the things that would be of interest to you are online sponsor site update forms, CLEAD, LIQ data, and build better report options, eScholar and DRC changes, and 504 accommodations changes in the data system. So the new online forms for SPS, that is to eliminate duplicate work, to make it easier for you to submit forms and make it easier for LDOE to receive and process the forms. For clean LIQ data and build better reports options, this is to build a new assessment database for LEAs to get their students' assessments and test scores and enhance the reporting options. For the eScholar DRC change, this is to eliminate the TSDL system and consolidate multiple layouts for DRC into one. And then for the 504 accommodations, this change is to provide a breakout of read aloud by subject. So there would be an ELA read aloud, a math read aloud, a science, and a social studies read aloud separate in the data system instead of included as one. A couple resource reminders. You've seen this a million times, so I won't go over it, but these are a ton of assessment resources for you to use as you're preparing for assessments and for PD this summer to be preparing teachers for next school year. Also, this is the resource availability timeline for our assessment guides, webinars, and practice tests, along with social studies frameworks and answer key and practice test information. Here are links to the guides to the online equation builders and rubrics, and of course the OTT. We released the 2018-2019 school system planning calendar. This link here takes you to that, and that includes all of my calls that will be in there, along with collaboration dates, newsletter distribution dates as well. So if you want to go ahead and access that calendar, you can see when office hours and the monthly calls are for next year, along with a bunch of other important dates. Also, as I mentioned earlier about the Teacher Leader Summit, the sessions this year will focus on the theme, meaningful growth for every student, every day. And there will be presentations throughout the summit regarding assessments. And so I wanted to go over a couple of those with you. So there will be LEAP 360 focus sessions. They'll focus on the overview of LEAP 360, the guidance documents, and then ELA and math specific data and resources. We'll also have LEAP 2025 sessions And you'll see here the sessions that will be available for ELA, Math, Social Studies, and Science. We'll also have English learner sessions, and there will be a session on the ELPT results, along with a session on the ELPS, which is the screener that we'll be going over at the summit as well. We'll also have sessions for students with disabilities, and there will be a session on Lead Connect at high school. So if you want to be thinking about the sessions you want to attend this summit, these are all of the assessment-related sessions. As a reminder, if the DTC, backup DTC accountability contact or a backup accountability contact changes, or even your shipping address, anything that changes as far as your information, that needs to be submitted to us at assessment@la.gov, and the form is linked here. This is a link to our customer service contact information sheet. And as a reminder, these are all the different supports we provide: newsletters, weekly and monthly calls, our assessment and accountability library, our email hotline. And if you all need anything, as always, please email us. A couple of next steps for you all would be to train your school test coordinators, if you haven't already, for spring assessments, but you're probably finishing up high school, and then be thinking about summer testing as well. And the testing dates are listed on here, as well as the next monthly call, which is May 15th at 1 o'clock. I have about 2 minutes. I'll try to jump to some questions. I think I've answered most of these as I've gone through the slides, so let's see. There's a question about 8th grade student enrolled in geometry. So this rule about Algebra 1 does not apply because it's geometry. The rule only applies to Algebra 1, meaning they can take just the Algebra 1 high school assessment or both the 8th grade and the high school Algebra 1 assessment. All right, so I'm going to repeat the 8th grade blurb again. You all, I mean, the schools already should know this if they're going to have them test both or not, but there are 2 options for kids in Algebra 1 that are in 8th grade. They have to take the Algebra 1 LEAP 2025 test because they're enrolled in the course. The option comes into play with whether they take the 8th grade LEAP or not. So they can just take the high school LEAP 2025 for algebra, or they can take both the 8th grade LEAP 2025 and the high school Algebra 1 LEAP 2025. So that is the only subject, only grade it applies to. So if you have a 7th grade in Algebra 1, it doesn't apply. It's only for 8th grade Algebra 1. We have a question about Cavion. So the links in the Cavion slide link you to the fee list. So we've negotiated costs with Cavion, and the information that we've negotiated is listed there. So this would be a district cost if you chose to purchase any of those services. We have a quick question about the high school results. So EOC results will be back within the 4-day turnaround like normal. LEAP 2025 high school results, not including U.S. history, are going to be released at the end of the window. So they are going to start being released at the end of the window, and they will continue to release until May 24th. So if you are super concerned about a senior, you probably already having them tested first in the window. So I mean, I wouldn't worry about them because you probably already have procedures in place for seniors. But just so you know, results will continue to be posted until the 24th. All right, those of you who are joining for the non-public DTC call, welcome, welcome. I'm finishing up a couple questions before we start. We have questions about the pickup dates for paper materials. Those are listed in this deck, but also in the test coordinator manual. So the 3 pickup dates are listed in there. All right, we have a question about text-to-speech for English learners. Social studies, science, and math can be provided as text-to-speech for English learners. The ELA test, there is not an accommodation for ELA read aloud because it is an English test. So only math, science, and social studies are possibilities for accommodations for read aloud for English learners on their plan. We have a question about the equation editor. If you have a student that is having an issue putting in a fraction in the equation editor, make sure that they are not typing a response in the equation editor. So the equation editor is just for equations or just to enter fractions or whatever they're needing to do. It is not the text box where they write the explanation. So I would have them double check to make sure they're using the correct box to type their explanation. If they're going to select the equation builder to enter a fraction, they're going to need to click on the numerator and denominator to enter those numbers. All right, I am going to display the non-public DTC PowerPoint, so give it just a second as it loads. It's also located in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen in the Files box. And as that loads, I'll keep answering just a couple more questions we had. We have a question about 4-level U.S. history. Those results will be back in 4 days. Unless they're a senior and they're eligible for rescore, that'll be 8 days. Yes, students that have transferred answers will need an accommodated booklet. Can English 1 students use a dictionary or thesaurus? No, that is not an accommodation. We have someone asking to repeat the equation builder information. If you have a student who is telling you that something's wrong with their equation builder, it is probably because they may have typed in their response in the equation builder instead of in the text box. So the kids should be using the equation builder for equations. So some resources to point people would be, of course, the OTT. The equation editor guidance documents, the assessment guides, all of those things. If they played with the OTT and done those things, they should be familiar with the equation builder. I would make sure that they don't have any text in that box, as they should only be entering equations. There's a separate text box for them to respond, like if it's asking them to explain their work or something like that, they would type it in that text box. Dictionary and thesaurus is not an accommodation unless you still have English 3 testers that have that, but it is not an accommodation for any other ELA test. The next question is asking to repeat the text-to-speech information for English learners. So on the English learner accommodation plan, there is an option for the student to have an accommodation for math, science, or social studies read aloud. ELA read aloud is not an accommodation for English learners because it's an ELA test. It's an English test. They need to receive it in English. So there's not a Spanish accommodation for that as well. So Spanish math is the only subject that has Spanish. And then science, math, and social studies can be read aloud in English, but ELA cannot be read aloud in English. It is not an accommodation. It's not even a section on that form for them to check. It just doesn't exist on the accommodation form. So you shouldn't have anyone that has it by accident. It's just not available.
This has been a presentation of the Louisiana Department of Education, copyright 2018, all rights reserved. For more information or to contact the Louisiana Department of Education, on the web go to www.louisianabelieves.com or call 1-877-453-2721.